Hola, muy buenos días a todos. Ahora tenemos interpretación simultánea en español. Para tener acceso a la interpretación, por favor seleccione el idioma de su preferencia en la parte inferior de la pantalla, ahí donde usted encontrará el globo terráqueo. Muchas gracias y esperamos disfruten este webinario.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Heather Casso, and I'm part of Leadership Prince William Class of 2021. We would like to welcome you to our final Community Conversation Seminar on Financial Recovery. Financial recovery plays an important role in rebuilding our communities. Our communities have been significantly affected due to the pandemic. Our local Virginia Cooperative Extension in Prince William County will share tips on financial recovery by providing strategies and resources for eliminating debt, improving your credit score, and budgeting. Let's go over just a few asks as part of this session. We would like for you to submit your questions using the chat box. When you send your questions in, you can use the all panelists or all panelists and attendees. That way our tech support can help ensure that your question gets into the lineup. Please do not use the raised hand function. If you need language interpretation, please be sure to click on the interpretation box at the bottom of your screen. If you have joined us but your internet service is spotty or unpredictable, please know that we'll be live streaming this on Leadership's Prince William's Facebook and YouTube accounts. Next, I would like to introduce our Executive Director, Andrea Money of Leadership Prince William. Andrea?
Thank you, Heather. Really quickly, I just want to do kind of a first things first, and I want to recognize our Leadership Prince William mission sponsors. These are the companies and individuals who support us on an annual basis, and they are Youth for Tomorrow, Centera Northern Virginia Medical Center, Whitlock Wealth Management, Dominion Energy, Tina and Juan Laguna, and Loveless Porter Architects. We also have Prince William Living, Compton and Dueling, and First Light Home Care of Woodbridge. So I just want to thank those companies and individuals for their ongoing support. I also want to just kind of quickly go over, okay, how did we come to be doing this project? We have a grant from the Community Foundation for Northern Virginia to thank for being able to provide this community conversation. And it was a part of their Build Back Dream Forward Fund. So with that, I want to turn the floor over to our current board chair, Tina Laguna, who has joined us today as a panelist.
Good morning, everyone. I will be very brief. I just wanted to, on behalf of Leadership Prince William, thank you all for joining us today. A special shout out to the class of 2021 for putting together a phenomenal community conversation series. If this is your first time joining us, I guarantee you are going to love the information that you hear. It will be very informative. And if you've been with us through the other community conversations, again, thank you for coming back. If you know anything about Leadership Prince William, we are definitely about making the community better, the greater Prince William community better. And this is just one way to do that. So again, on behalf of Leadership Prince William, the board, and all of our alumni, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Tina. Thanks, Andrea. So we're going to go ahead and begin with our first session, what to do when you can't pay your bills. This session will last 30 minutes and will be followed by a 5-minute break. There will be 3 30-minute sessions with 5 minutes between each session. At the end of the last session, we'll have a question and answer panel. Joanne Bellata and Audrey Spencer Horsley from the Virginia Cooperative Extension in Prince William County are our panelists and will be able to answer any questions related to financial recovery. Please add any questions that you may have in the chat throughout the session, and we'll get them answered at the end. Now I'll turn it over to Audrey to begin our first session. Audrey? Audrey, I believe you're on mute.
Oh, okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm going to share my screen now. Just give me a moment here. Great. Am I doing it wrong? Yes. Hopefully everyone can see the screen okay. How do I get just one?
Audrey, it looks great from my end.
All right, thank you. Again, welcome. And today we're going to be bringing you an adapted version from our financial management series that's sponsored and managed by Virginia Cooperative Extension in partnership with Virginia Tech, Virginia State University, Prince William County, and other partners that include United Way, United States Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. There will be a three-part series, as mentioned. First, we're going to talk about what to do when you can't pay your bills, and then understanding credit. And we're going to finally wrap up with setting up a spending plan. Can I move this? Okay. All right. What to do when you can't pay your bills. So what can happen for you not to be able to pay your bills? Life happens. You could lose your job, or you lost your job. You became ill, or someone that you take care of became ill, an accident, or your car breaks down, which is your primary means of transportation to your employment and source of income. You have to take care of someone. It could be your children, a family member, or the pandemic that happened to us all. And so we learn to adjust. The first thing to do is just know that you're not alone. You're not the only one experiencing challenges in life. And so just breathe and know that this is a temporary situation and you're going to get through it with some planning and organizing. So first, take a deep breath and then assess your situation. Try to sit down and organize all of the financial decisions that you need to make that impacts your living standards or how your lifestyle. You want to prioritize your bills. And so you want to sit down and gather up everything or make a list. Hopefully you're one of those people that at least keeps all of your bills in one place or in a box. But if not, just sit down, make a list of all your bills. You're going to prioritize them. And then you're going to contact your creditors, the people that you have promised to pay a certain amount by a certain time, and let them know the situation. One of the options is to offer smaller payments or see what they can do to help you work through your situation. And above all, We're going to talk about asking for help. Never be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes we let our pride or we're concerned about our privacy affecting our ability and comfortableness and being able to ask for help. There is nothing wrong with asking for help. We all need it sometimes. And sometimes you may need to explore legal steps. Just remember that the situation is temporary, depending on what has interrupted your ability to pay your bills. You may want to say, well, how long do you think the situation is going to last, or I can turn it around? And then look at whether it's a new job or you're going to have to move, what decisions are going to be have to be made, and how long you think it will take you to get to that next phase in your life. You want to look at what resources are available. And a lot of times we forget, we get so caught up in our situation, we forget that there's help out there. There are resources through your local social services office. There's Virginia Cooperative Extension, like I said, that offer programs and counseling that can help you work through your situation. The Department of Housing can maybe talk to you about some emergency situations, or possibly nonprofits that may be able to help in a temporary situation. There are food programs and food banks and different places that donate food. So again, just reach out for assistance in your community. Right now, through the pandemic, there's help with utilities if you qualify financially. And so one of the first things you want to figure out is, what is the immediate need? You know, making sure that you have shelter and food, you know, for example, are some of your immediate needs that you want to make sure that you figure out how you're going to take care of those. So what do you do when you're saying, okay, I need to prioritize my bills? Okay. First, like I said, if you don't have them all together, to make a list, put down the amount that is due. And then when you get a total of all of those bills and who they're owed to, look at whether you can fully pay, partially pay, pay late, keeping in mind that there may be some late fees that you need to build in. Or when you talk to your creditors, see if that can be put on the back end. Sometimes your creditors will let you pay the main portion of the bill that's due and to defer the late payments to later, which will help some temporarily. Try to avoid going over 30 days if your plan allows that, because that will then show up on your credit for some bills. And we'll be talking about that a little later in when we talk about credit. Pay attention to the consequences. You don't want anything to jeopardize having shelter for you and your household. So you want to make sure that you're going to be able to keep your housing situation stabilized. So you should definitely be, if you feel like your housing is in jeopardy, you should definitely be reaching out for help, unless you have family or other sources that's going to help you cover your shelter costs. If you don't know and you can't figure it out, you should definitely reach out to help, because there are programs and services in our community that will help you try to figure that out. Look at what's going to prevent you from earning income. You may say, well, I'm not going to repair the car or take care of the car, but if you need your car to get to your employment, then that may not be the best decision. Again, you want to make decisions that are going to allow you to continue to have whatever financial stream of income coming in. You want to make sure that you do things that don't negatively impact your health or the ability to live independently. For example, if you take medication that helps you to manage life, you need that to function, then you need to, again, reach out and figure out, you know, how you're going to meet that need. You don't want to jeopardize your health. You know, without your health, you really don't have a whole lot else. You know, other things really aren't as important. And then you try to make decisions that won't result in the loss of your assets. And so what are we talking about when we say your assets? You know, like your house, that's an asset. Your vehicle, you want to try to maintain and preserve those things that you worked hard for, that's going to help you continue to function and carry on your living standards as much as possible. So here's an example, just to give you a visual for those of us who learn visually. Here's just an example that just shows you how you might sit down and figure that out. You can list all your bills and other expenses. You see on the example on the screen, someone has started with the phone bill and how much is due and when it's due. And so you would, have you spoke to the creditor about that? Is that a bill that you can defer? Sometimes they will let you go another month. And again, that may be a bill that won't, show up on your credit. So again, talk to the creditor, but this is an example. And then it is showing the consequence of if I don't pay it in full, what'll happen? Well, it's going to be a late fee. It may get cut off, but it's not going to, they said they won't be cut off for 2 months. That may give you time to call your other creditors and figure out a plan for paying your bills. And so you've made this, or the person that did this in this example made this priority number 4. Probably the highest priority might be your shelter, your housing. Have you figured out if you have a mortgage, have you called your mortgage company? Mortgage companies are familiar with working with our clients when it's an emergency, because they don't want you to lose your house either. They don't want to have to figure out disposing of your property either. They want to work with you so that you can stay in your house and you can continue your payments. So, if you have a mortgage, don't be afraid and do it as soon as possible. The soonest you call your creditors, the more options you have, the more they have an opportunity to help. So please don't just bury your head. I know you want to do that. Sometimes people get overwhelmed and they want to just push it away and not have to deal with it. That's not the best decision. The best decision is to take a breath, know you're going to get through it, know you can figure it out with some help, and reach out for that help early. And so here is just a summary of things I've said. Don't ignore it. Ask them to what extent they can help you. And if you know that it's not just going to be a month, or it's going to be a little, say maybe a few months, then you want to ask how long they can provide the assistance. That way you're planning ahead. You don't want to have to call every month. So, oh, okay, well, now I'm still in the situation. Try to project how long you're going to be in that situation, and ask them how long they can offer a break or what they can do to help over that period that you've estimated you're going to need help. That way they can look at all the options and help you make the best decision. So one of the things you can do is to ask for a lower payment. Can I break up what's due into smaller payments? Sometimes they can change the payment date, assuming that you were current. A lot of times, and they will be willing to do that. If not, again, you can still ask for what they might be able to help do for you to get through this temporary situation. And then where can you ask for help? Again, don't let pride get in the way of making good, responsible decisions. This too will pass. And so if you can reach out to family and friends, sometimes they can point you to resources or help in any way they can. You may ask for equity, a home loan equity, and I'm sorry, out of a bank loan to get equity out of your home, to get a home loan. And so another option is local government, your social services office, and again, like I say, your utility companies. And then there are religious organizations and nonprofits like Acts and Serve in our community and Streetlight Ministries are examples where you can go and ask for help. One of the things you can do is to look at ways, so you've prioritized your bills, you've contacted your creditors, they've told you what they can do, you've contacted the resources that you know of, your family, friends, your church, other organizations, your social service department. So you've now kind of reached out and figured out where you can get help through those sources. So you may still have a shortfall, particularly if this is going to be a 60 or longer situation, 60-month or longer situation. Then you want to say, well, let me see how I can increase my income. Is there a part-time job I can get? Are there things I can do? Some people have yard sales or have items of value that they're willing to let go because they need the income. The other thing is you can decrease your expenses. And this doesn't cost you anything per se, but you can look and remember, yes, you're going to have to give up some things that you enjoy as far as your lifestyle, but remember, it's temporary. It's going to help you get through this rough patch. And you can always go back to those things when you're ready. So you can look at ways to decrease your expenses, your subscriptions, energy bills, spending limits. Again, we can look at maybe, we're used to buying, say, $100 or $200 in groceries. Can we pare back our grocery list so that we have some savings there? Maybe we can ride share. And so we cut, some of our transportation costs. Just look at different ways. Maybe we can, maybe we have the full premium service of something, whether it be, phones or Netflix or whatever. Maybe you can cut those things temporarily to get you over the rough patch and then go back. And of course, you can do both. You can try to find ways to increase your income and look at ways you can decrease your expenses. I'm not going to go shopping this month. I'm not going to pay for whatever this month that I, usually do for fun, to try to realize some savings that I can put towards my priority bills. And then as a last resort, sometimes people look at bankruptcy, but that should be a last resort when everything else, you've tried, because that is a huge decision and a huge impact on your credit that you can that can last up to 10 years. It does halt immediate efforts of creditors to try to collect. They're supposed to not call you after you declare bankruptcy. It can eliminate certain debts. It can allow you to settle certain debts, meaning work out a payment arrangement where a creditor may agree to take less. It can allow you to have a fresh start, to start over and say, you know what, this was a rough, bad patch, but I'm going to get a new start and move on with my life. But like I said, it comes with big consequences. It can be on your financial records, particularly your credit, for up to 10 years. And so sometimes, oftentimes, creditors won't give you credit, or they will charge you a lot more because you have that on your record. They are concerned about whether you're going to be a good paying customer. And then sometimes it can be complicated, particularly if you have assets. So you want to make sure that you get good advice. Sometimes it's costly, but you may need a lawyer, and it's better to be clear about the consequences and what you're doing than to take a chance on making a decision that you don't quite understand the complications and the consequences. And there are two types of bankruptcy. You may have heard of Chapter 7 or Chapter 13. And there are two different types of bankruptcy One is a debt liquidation plan. It allows you to discharge or get rid of certain debts like unsecured loans, your credit cards, medical bills. And then there is, you have secured and unsecured debt that may be handled through Chapter 7. And it exempts certain assets. Eligibility is any individual who lives in the United States or has property or business in the United States. And so that's one option. The other option is Chapter 13. And so that usually is for someone who still maybe have an income stream, is still able to work. And so while they may not have enough money to meet all of their obligations, they do have some income or some equity in their assets that will allow them to make a payment plan, meaning your debt will be reorganized and you're able to work out with your debtors that arrangement that will allow you to pay over time. And so you end up with a modified payment plan. And usually that can last between 3 to 5 years. What bankruptcy cannot do. So there are certain things, a lot of times people say, oh, well, I'll declare bankruptcy because that sounds like an easy way out. But there are certain things that bankruptcy won't correct. Poor money management. If you're struggling and you haven't figured out a clear path forward, declaring bankruptcy isn't going to fix that. You may need counseling and additional support to come up with a more solid plan financially. It's not going to change your situation if you really don't have enough income to cover your obligations. It may, sometimes people think that it's going to get rid of all my debt. There are certain debts that won't be discharged, like taxes that may be due, your student loans, fines. And so you want to be careful, like I said, and be clear and understand what bankruptcy will do and not do for you. It's time consuming. It can be expensive. It's $338 approximately if you file on your own the required legal documents. However, it really, unless you're able to really do the research and understand, it really is advisable to hire a lawyer or some person that's familiar with and understands the law and the consequences depending on your personal situation, because bankruptcy can be different for each individual depending on what their financial situation is and what got them in that situation and the options, for example, the income you may have going forward. And it can take 2 to 10 years to fix your credit. So, and it may prevent you from getting credit for years. And so what does that mean? That means that things are going to cost you a lot more money. You're going to get the highest interest rates. You're going to get a lot of conditions or limits on financing that you may need for certain things that you want to purchase going forward. And so there are reasons not to file for bankruptcy. If you file, you may not be able to do another discharge for 8 years, for example, for Chapter 7. Your statute of limitations, old debt is not collectible. Different state exemptions may apply if the debtor has moved recently. So be careful. You may move and think that, I've gotten away from the debt and the debtor, but you go to another state, there may be other laws that apply. So you, like I said, you want to watch that. That you may still have some debt even after certain things were included. Like we said, your student loans, that didn't get wiped out. So there may be still things that are still going to be your obligation to figure out even after bankruptcy. So maybe when you weigh the pros and cons, it may not be the right decision for you. And that's why you want to try to get counsel where you can. For some, legal aid is an option if you are income eligible to receive services through that. Otherwise, you may try to see what's available in your community as far as professional help. Sometimes you can get legal help on a pro bono basis or on a short advisory basis. And so in summation, the bottom line is don't ignore the issue. Sit down and know, and take a deep breath and know you're going to get through it. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. We all at some point in life need help. And so that's a part of living. So don't let your pride keep you from making good, responsible decisions. Communicate with your creditors and communicate with them as early as possible. As soon as you know that this is a situation that's going to be here for a while, begin to list all of the creditors, what's owed, the consequences, prioritize, and then contact them and ask them how they can help. That you want to do the right thing, you want to pay your bills, but right now you need some help, and what can they do? Try to work with a financial counselor if you can. Like I said, there is Virginia Cooperative Extension, but there may be other resources and services in the community. Try to identify those and ask others. A lot of times you'd be surprised, people know of resources if you just ask. Avoid schemes to eliminate debt. Like, because sometimes we get all worked up and overwhelmed about situation, we start trying to find quick fixes. And that should be a red flag right there. If it's a quick fix, it's probably not a well thought out one. So avoid schemes to eliminate debt and try to find professionals, particularly nonprofits, for example, who are willing to help you. And not these promises where say I can fix your credit or I can get you a loan or consolidate your finances. You always want to know what it's going to cost and what are going to be the consequences and how long, what is their background. Make sure, for example, you check with the Better Business Bureau and other resources to make sure that they are a reliable source of help. And then seek legal help if you're unsure, particularly if you're thinking about bankruptcy. And I would say, don't just seek legal help. You may want to go to a counselor, because a lot of times if you go to a lawyer, they're there to offer a service. They're not there to maybe to analyze your financial situation and help you get on a solid footing going forward. So I always say, go to counseling and resources in the community that are going to help you objectively look at your picture first. And then once you look at all your options, then if you think bankruptcy is an option, then you're going in with a clear plan and understanding of what the impact is going to be. So we're going to break here, and I'm going to turn it back over.
All right, I'm going to take over real quick. So we're going to take a quick break here. If anybody has questions, feel free to put a question in the chat box and we can answer it, or if you're not comfortable putting it in the chat box, you can send it to me later. But there's a lot of information here, and we just really want to help you guys understand that there's a lot of options here. If you can't pay your bills, we at Cooperative Extension are financial counselors, and we can work with you to figure out some solutions here, how to move some bills around, where to prioritize, help you contact creditors, a lot of solutions there for you. But we're going to take a 5-minute break here. So it's 10:33 right now. I'm not seeing any questions right now. We will give you guys a 5-minute break. Be back to start at 10. Well, now it's 10:34. All right. So at 10:39, we'll start back up with the next section, which is talking about understanding credit. All right, so we're going to get started back again. So as I mentioned before the break, we are going to be talking about credit coming up next. This is just going to be some basic tips about credit. If you have additional information, you are certainly welcome to contact us and we can walk you through some stuff. We do a series on financial empowerment, and credit is one of the courses that we do as well. So if you'd like some additional information, you're welcome to take one of our courses. But I'm going to hand it over to Audrey and let her pull up her presentation again, and we'll talk a little bit about credit. Again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. What I can answer there, I will answer. And then at the end of the third part of our series here, we'll take all of the questions that are in the chat box if you have any. All right, Audrey, are you ready? You're muted.
Do you see that okay?
Not yet.
Oh.
Okay, there we go.
Oops. Did I go back to the beginning here? Let's see. Okay. All right. So now we're going to talk about understanding credit. Remember when I was talking about paying your bills and figuring out what you can do when you can't pay. And I mentioned that sometimes those decisions, the ability not to be able to pay, can affect your credit. And we talked about how bankruptcy can affect your credit. So we're going to just skim the surface, but try to cover key points about credit and understanding what's involved when someone says, how's your credit? People now, when you go into places, you'll ask about financing or your option. They always say, well, how's your credit? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Let me see if I can move that over here. So what is credit? Here's just a simple definition. It's really, as you can see in red, it's a promise. You receive goods and services or money in exchange for your promise to repay the money. Usually there's some interest involved, but sometimes you get credit cards, for example, with zero financing for a period of time. But it's a promise to pay at a future date for the services, goods, or money that you receive. And so nowadays, if you've had to get anything financed or make a large purchase that you can't pay for outright, your credit comes into play because that affects the terms that you're going to get, whether you're going to get the best price and financing for that service or item, or for that loan if it's money. And so lenders rely on the information, your history about how you managed your money is really what your credit report is about. They rely on that in making decisions on whether they think you are credit worthy or not, whether you're a business or a consumer. And so there's 5 key factors, often called the 5 C's, that a lender will look at to determine if you're credit worthy. And one is your character, and not about you, are you a nice person, because we all are, hopefully, but your history, what's in your record as far as payment, your payment history is concerned. How well have you managed your money? So that's what they look at as far as your character, is your financial character and your payment history, your capacity to repay. You know, what is your income stream? What has been the largest sums that you've had in a loan or the largest purchases you've made? It kind of tells the lender about your capacity to, and your experience about repaying debt. Your capital, you know, what do you have available as far as resources to repay your loan? Your collateral, do you have assets like a car that you can use against getting a loan? Or sometimes it's a house if you're getting an equity loan. And that's for what's called secured loans, meaning you're putting up something to guarantee an asset, to guarantee to the lender or the debtor that you're going to repay them. And if you don't, at least they have an asset like your house or your car that they can, you know, come back or repossess to try to offset what is due or what is owed. And then there are conditions. Each one of us, depending on our credit, all the other factors here, the other 4 C's, there may be conditions. They may have a limit on how much they are willing to give you. They may offer you different rates, different interest rates, depending on your situation. They may, you know, do a long-term or short-term loans. The length of the loan may be different. So it just depends on each of our 5 C's, how lender will view or view our credit worthiness. This little box. And so there are different types of credit. And so you see revolving accounts, charge cards, which I think most of us are familiar with, and then installment accounts. And so here are some examples of these different types of credit. With a revolving account, you can have unsecured. Remember, I was just talking about secured, meaning that you're putting up something like a house or a car to give the lender some guarantee that you're going to repay. And if you don't, they have some recourse to come against your assets. But there's also unsecured credit. You can get a small loan that just, you know, on your own personal credit worthiness that don't have any assets behind it. And so those are called unsecured, meaning it's just whatever the lender provided, and that's going to be their only recourse. And then with secured credit cards, for example, they may have you to put down a small deposit, and that's your credit limit, whatever you put in deposit. So you're really borrowing your own money, but it's allowing you to provide a track record so the lender can see whether you are able to manage certain amount of money. So it may start out small, whatever you deposit, and as you build a credit history, then they may reduce the amount you have on deposit or say that you don't have to have one at all. And they may be able to then put their own money in to extend that credit limit. So say you deposited $100, $500, I'll say, to start a credit card. And you, over months, you show a good payment history on that card, then they may reduce it to $250. Or they may say, you know what, you've done well, we're willing to give you a credit line of $1,000. So, but we're going to require that you keep your deposit for another X number of months so that it remains a secured card. So those are just 2 types of revolving accounts. And then you have charge cards where as you purchase, you have a limit, and as you purchase, then that limit is reduced. But once you repay, that credit line comes back so that you can use it, again. And then you have installment accounts. And these are usually accounts like your student loans, automobile loans, mortgages where you purchased a home, or small personal loans. And so there is a set interest rate. There's a set amount that you've agreed to pay each month. And so, and until you pay that off. So it just reduces the balance as you make payments, as opposed to revolving credit. As you pay it back, you get that credit line again. So if you pay back 100, you have that 100 to use again, as opposed to installment accounts. It just reduces the amount you owe until you pay it off. So let's talk about what's in your credit report. It has identifying information about you, and it has who you had credit with, your debts. It lists all your debts, the balances, what's owed, your history, how well you paid your bills, or your credit lines that you've had. If you've ever had anything to be put into collections, that may show up on your credit report. Public record information. So you may say, well, what is a public record information? If somebody's ever gotten a judgment, you know, they felt that they couldn't get satisfaction from you, so they took you to court and they got a judgment against your income. And so that will be in your record. And then there's applications or for credit. So you may have looked at, you were buying a car, so you may have looked at 2 or 3 sources of financing the car, but you only ended up taking one. And so those inquiries that you made will be on your credit. And a lot of times you say, well, why are they interested in that? Because sometimes lenders will be concerned, okay, I was looking at their debt obligations, and I think they are pretty much at the max based on their income. And there is some concern that they're trying to get more credit. So maybe something is happening in their life or in their income stream that it's requiring them to get new credit. And therefore, I'm going to be a little concerned about extending more credit to this individual. So that's why they care about the inquiries, because they may be thinking you're overextending yourself, or you're going to jeopardize being able to repay them. And all of that credit history goes into what's called a credit score. And so nowadays, most of us have heard about a FICO score. So a credit score is calculated based on the information in your credit report. It's based on all of your financial history, and it's based on a formula. Generally, the higher the number means the better your credit history, meaning you've done well managing your money. You've stayed within your financial ability to pay bills on time as agreed, and you've kept your debt down. You know, you aren't maxing out everything, meaning you're managing your money well. And so they use this as a predictor of how well you're going to repay debt obligations. And there are 2 significant factors that affect your credit. And though one is repaying debts on time as agreed. And then the other is your credit utilization rate, meaning how much of your credit line, if you got $1,000 and when they pull your credit, it says that you've used $959, you're pretty maxed out that credit that's been extended to you. That's a cause for concern, because what it tells the lender is that you're either not having enough income to keep your debt at a manageable level or at a low level, or you're not being responsible with the credit that's been extended because you're maxing out everything. And so that's just one example. And nowadays, years ago, credit was primarily used, credit reports and information was primarily used for the big ticket of the big purchases, life purchases like a car, your house, major appliances maybe. But nowadays, if you have had to get a phone or get your utilities cut on, or you've had to rent or buy a house, or get a credit card, you know that almost everyone now, including employers in some states, ask about your credit and your credit history. Because again, that shows some level of responsibility and your ability to manage money and debt. And so now, utility companies now will base, whether you have to pay a deposit, for example, or your credit. I remember recently when I had to get a utility turned on, and they were telling me the deposit was going to be $500 or something, which I wasn't expecting it to be that much. But then they said, well, you may not have to pay anything depending on your credit. And fortunately, they came back and said, well, no, your credit is good. You don't need to make the deposit. So it's even things like that you don't think about that may affect affect you financially and your ability to pay and, for example, get your utilities turned on. Insurance companies now use credit, which kind of boggles my mind, but now they look at credit. And so you want to take your credit history and your score seriously and protect that and be responsible with it. There are multiple producers of credit scores. The most common one is FICO, the Fair Isaac, established by the Fair Isaac Corporation. But there are banks, for example, that use the Vantage score. I know one of the banks that I bank with uses a Vantage score. All of it is based on your credit history. And like I said, the most common one is your FICO score. Nowadays, if you have a bank account, they will provide for free your FICO score. I remember, again, years ago, they wouldn't readily tell you what your FICO score was. You had to go and pay to access that information or get it through some private source. The three big credit bureaus are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And the thing to know about that is when you look at the information about your credit in either of these bureaus or companies, you will find that the information isn't always the same. That's because it depends on what creditor reported what information to that bureau. And so they may only report for that particular lender, they may only report their information to Equifax, or they may report them, to all of them. So it just depends on what's reported about your credit. And so don't be alarmed if you look at one and it has different list of debts and debtors. What you want to make sure is that the information that's in each of these are correct. And so regardless of whether each of them have all of the same information or not, you want to make sure that whatever information they have is correct information, because it affects your credit score and what's being reported about your credit history and about your credit worthiness. But these are the three major nationwide credit reporting agencies. And so I remember I said that there's two big factors. There's actually five that builds your score or goes into calculating your score. But two of the biggest components is the amounts owed and your payment history. And you see the biggest one is your payment history. Do you pay your bills on time? That's just the bottom line. It's that simple. If you're supposed to pay $50 by the 5th of the month, do you consistently do that? It's okay to say, I'm going to double up next month. I'm going to skip this month. Well, you've just dinged your credit big time. It's more important to pay the minimum due on time than to pay a whole lot one month and miss a payment or be late another month. So payment history is big. Make sure that you're paying your bills on time. And again, remember when we talked about what you need to do if you're not able to pay is to contact your creditors and work out something early to try to preserve and protect your score and your credit history. And then there's the amounts owed. 30%. So what does that mean, amounts owed? That means that out of all of the credit that's been extended to you, what amount is still outstanding? So across all of your credit cards, say you have a mortgage, a car loan, you have student loans, across all of those accounts, how much do you owe? As opposed to, for example, your credit line. Say you have a credit card that has a $5,000 credit line, and you only have $500 that you keep on there, for taking care of your transactions from month to month. Then you probably going to get a good score as far as utilization of your credit, as opposed to someone who they pull and have a $5,000 credit line and they've used up $4,000 and some dollars. You pretty much max out your credit lines. And that tells the creditor that, oh, they may be maxing out all that they can afford. They really can't afford any new credit, and they're having a hard time managing the credit they have. So that's why those two things are important: paying on time and how much of your credit are you utilizing. And you may say, well, you get credit to use it. Yes, but they expect, a lender expects you to use it responsibly and to stay within your means. They don't want to risk putting their money in a shaky deal, and neither would you. So you can look at it from that perspective. The other factors that make up your credit score is the 10% new credit. Have you opened a new credit card? Then that's going to affect your score negatively, but hopefully as you get a payment history, it will go back up. But you want to watch continuing to add new credit, because again, it's adding to your outstanding debt and the amount that you are having to pay, which may give a lender pause or concern. The length of the credit history, if you're just starting out new with your credit, then you may not have a long credit history. So they don't have much to go on to know whether you're credit worthy or not. So it may take some time to build that credit history. The other thing is, if you do have accounts where you've had good history, you want to keep those accounts to the extent possible, because it shows that over a period of time, you are a good risk. You pay your bills on time, and they got proof of it. Looking at the length of credit, you've had this one for 5 years, you had this one for 10 years, and you've had a good history with those. Then they're feeling more comfortable. Okay, they've paid their bills over time. This looks like a good risk, And then there is the credit mix. You may have had a car loan, but that's the only credit you've had, or you may just have student loans. So you don't have a good credit mix. And there you're coming in asking for maybe a mortgage or some type of loan to purchase an asset. And they don't see that you've had a history with a big purchase like that. So they're looking at how have you handled different types of credit, and have you been able to manage that? Some people do well with a revolving card. That is, you pay it, the balance goes down, and then it goes back up as you pay it off. But some people don't do very well with the open line of credit, meaning they don't have a limit. So they don't do well with staying within their means. So they don't have a limit on how much they can purchase. And so they overextend themselves, and then they're starting to pay late and have problems with that. So, it depends on the person how well you do with credit, but they look at the credit mix and how well you've managed that. One of the things that's important to know is that you can get a free copy of your credit report annually. And prior to the pandemic, you could get it for free annually, but now because of the pandemic, you can get it once a week through April 2022. So you want to check and see what's going on your report. And so you may want to alternate that, you know, this time you check this one, the next time you check the others, but you want to make sure you're looking at all of the credit bureaus and knowing what's on your report. Because like I said, one may look good and reporting things accurately, and another may not. And that may be the one that the creditor pulls and it has bad or wrong information on it that can affect you. For example, if you're trying to buy a house or a car. It also, the Accurate Credit Transactions Act also limits who can look at your report, how long negative information can stay in there. Generally, if you've had a late payment over 30 days, it'll be on your credit report for 7 years. And as we mentioned earlier, bankruptcy, 10 years. Positive information stays for at least 10 years, but I found that it can stay on longer depending on the information that's still on your credit report. And then it gives you a way to address inaccurate information. So there's a process and procedure to get inaccurate information, removed from your file. And so this, like I said, as Joanne said, we're just skimming the surface, but we have classes that go into more detail about all of the information we're providing. Or you can go online, see what information is there. But keep in mind that we're skimming the surface just to give you some of the key points about credit and other information we're providing today. The place where you go, be careful when you go to get your free credit report. Keep in mind that there will be other agencies that will come up when you do your search, and the one you want is www.annualcreditreport.com. Make sure you're at the right one, because others may charge or they may sell your information to creditors. So if you want to take advantage of the free report, make sure you're at annualcreditreport.com. And remember that you can get it once a week through April 2022. There are other sources like Credit Karma or Credit Sesame. I pay a small fee to get monthly reports about my credit and what's been put on it or added on it, and whether my score is going up or down or whatever. And so there are services that you can purchase as well that will provide information. Some come with guarantees about helping you if you run into a problem, like somebody who's fraudulent tried to use your account. But just make sure that you're aware of whether there's a charge or not and what they're going to do with your information. And know you always have access to a free credit report and finding out what's on your report through the annualcreditreport.com. And I've mentioned over and over again about review your credit report for errors, because it really can affect your score. There may be wrong information about your addresses and where you live. There may be incorrect information. It may say you have an account that you don't remember ever having. It may have said you missed a payment. So you want to check all of these things. It may say that your limit is $4,000 when you only got a limit of $2,000, or that you have $2,000 in outstanding debt when you paid the account, off a year ago. So there may be old information on there. So that's why you check it, because it can end up affecting your score. And also, if you get it cleared up, it can help increase and raise your score, which is always a good thing. It saves you money and interest rates you get, as well as terms. The conditions you get may be better with a better score. So remember, you can repair and improve your credit. But again, be wary and leery of those that tell you they can do this overnight quick fix thing. It usually does not work that way. You want to go to a good credit counseling agency or a nonprofit agency, somebody that doesn't have a financial interest and can give you a more objective view. Not saying that there aren't agencies out there that can help you. You just want to make sure that you do your homework and research to make sure it's a reliable and professional agency that has your interest at heart. And I talked about disputing and correcting errors, reviewing your report regularly, paying your bills on time. I cannot emphasize that enough, and try to keep your use of your credit as low as possible. Yes, use it when you need it, but pay it off as soon as you can so that you can keep that good credit score and the credit is available again when you really need it. There is something called powerpay.org that can also help you do a credit building strategy. You want to keep your old accounts open if that helps you as far as your credit worthiness. Sometimes people get excited like, oh, I paid this off and I'm gonna, close this account. Don't do that if that shows that you've had a good long payment history. You can just have an account on your record that shows no balance, which shows good payment history and good payment management, but it also lets the lender know over a long term, you had this account for 5 years, you don't have a balance on it, you always paid it on time. That helps your score. So be careful about closing accounts, particularly ones that help your score by showing that you have a good credit history. Only apply for credit if you need it. I know a lot of times we'll go in stores and they'll say, well, we'll give you 5 or 10% off if you open a credit line. Be careful of that because that can affect your credit score. If it's something that you need and want and going to use, and this your only one, then you may want to consider it. But again, you don't want a lot of those accounts because it may negatively affect your score. And you can negotiate different terms, and if you had a good history for a while, you can call and say, I've been with you for 3 years, 2 years, had a good credit history, I would like to raise my limit. Now, raising your limit doesn't mean you go use it, but if you raise the limit, it helps your utilization, meaning if you had a $500 limit and you raise it $1,000, but you keep, you don't use it, then you got credit, a better credit utilization example for the lender. You've been extended a higher credit limit, but you're not maxing it out. Or you can ask for a lower interest rate that allows you to make more payment towards what you owe. And then sometimes you can call the credit. Here you see a goodwill deletion. Sometimes you can call the creditor and they're willing to work with you. You say, I overlooked it, or I made a mistake, or there was a problem with my account. Can you not report this one this time? You can see last 5 years, I've always paid my bills on time. This is what happened. Can you work with me? Sometimes they will do that. It depends on the creditor. And then there are other things you can do to build alternative credit history that you can ask to be put on your file, like you paid your rent on time, or your utility bills, your television and internet service, or insurance payments. Sometimes you can use that as alternate credit history to show that you are a good creditor. And we talked about getting a secured credit card, where you go to a lender or bank and you say, I want a secured credit card, meaning I'm going to put a deposit down for the credit limit, and I'm going to use that card and show a good credit history. And that way I can build good credit. You can get a small loan and just pay it back so that you can build credit. Become an authorized user on an account. I did that for my daughter on one of my cards, and that helped her credit score because she's just out of college and she really doesn't have credit. Well, it helped her credit greatly. I told her I was going to charge her, just kidding. But so that's an option, is getting an authorized user on an account. Get a cosigner. Now, keep it in mind, when you ask somebody to cosign, they're saying that if you don't pay, they're going to pay. So just keep in mind that when you ask somebody to cosign for you, that's a big ask. And so make sure that you are responsible and pay it back, so you don't leave your mother or family member or friend hanging on your behalf. and now you're affecting their credit because it shows up on their credit report. You can apply for a gas card. Usually, a lot of times they aren't the best rate, but if you're only using it minimal and you're paying it back every month, don't matter. It's not costing you anything if you paying it, regularly and on time. Or you can make a large down payment and negotiate a loan for the balance. Again, these are things you can do to build your credit. These are just some examples of a credit, building strategy. So to just sum up, you want to make sure you understand your credit. How do you understand your credit? Go look at your credit report and see what's on it. Don't just look at one, look at all the major credit agencies and see what they're reporting. Is it accurate? Why is it important? Because it affects almost everything you do in your life nowadays. Getting your utilities turned on, getting insurance, buying big purchases like a house or a car, etc. There's different types of credit. Remember that you got your revolving credit, you got installment loans, you got credit cards. So just remember, there's different types of credit. And so you want to, if you can, make sure that you have a good mix, but that you're also being responsible and not maxing out the credit that's extended to you. You want to know what's in a score. You want to understand the components of the score. If I pay my bills late, my score is going to be hit hard because it's 35% or 30 or utilization, that you got a lot of outstanding debt. So that's going to hit your score hard. So make sure that you're watching that you're keeping inquiries, who you let check your credit to a minimum, because that can affect your score, not as majorly as the other two, but it can. We talked about how to get your report and other options to get your credit information. We didn't go into a lot of detail about how to correct errors, but again, like I said, Virginia Cooperative Extension offers information. There's information online, but it's basically just going in, contacting the lender and asking them to submit correct information and following up with the credit bureau to make sure, or the agency, to make sure that information was removed or corrected. And then we just talked about a few ways to improve your credit. Again, if you take the class or you do additional research, you'll find some other strategies, as well as the ones I mentioned, on how to improve credit. And so with that, I'm going to stop and turn it back over to Joanne, I believe.
Absolutely. Thank you, Audrey. So that's a lot of information, but I'll tell you, when we do the class, it's 90 minutes of information that goes into depth about credit reports and credit scores. So I had the conversation yesterday with my daughter. She's 19, and I told her she needs to get a credit card, and she doesn't want to, but she was arguing with me like, America is one of the only countries that has credit as a necessity to get loans or anything in this country. And so we were having the argument about it, but the reality is we can't get any kind of loans if we don't have a credit history. So, and Carmen had said that she was helping her 14-year-old with building a credit history. It's that important in this country that we have credit. And it's unfortunate because you get credit cards very easily, but nobody's coaching you on how to utilize the credit card. So as parents, we have to be hands-on with our children. My 21-year-old, we talk regularly about what's on her credit card and how she's paying it off because she wants to buy a car next year. And so we're working on her credit. So being hands-on with this is very, very vital. I did put some links up in the chat box. The free credit reports are from annualcreditreport.com. During the pandemic, if you put anything in forbearance or took a break from some of your loans, or your student loans are in forbearance, you do want to check your credit reports to make sure that they're reporting it properly. If you were in good standing prior to your loans going into forbearance, they should be reporting them as still up to date and current. Okay, and if they weren't, then you need to bring them current, and then you can get into forbearance and take that break with them. So with that, we are going to take another break. If anybody has questions, please put those in the chat box. Credit is the biggest question we get at Cooperative Extension is, how do I fix my credit? How do I get my credit score up? A lot of our clients, we work with the housing department, who was on the panel last week. We work with their first time home buyers program. You have to have a minimum 640 credit score. So we work with a lot of our clients to bring their credit up to 640 or higher, or even better than that, because the higher your score, the better rates you get. So this is one of the biggest questions that we get when it comes to our counseling services. And then Carmen did put up the resources that I'll put some information in a document. And they've got some resources in a document as well that they've put up on the chat box. So we're going to take another 5-minute break here just to give you guys a little bit of a breather. This is a lot of information. Talking finances is not always the funnest thing to do, but it's something that's so vital for us, and we don't pay enough attention to it. So it is 11:20 right now. We're going to take a 5-minute break and come back at 11:25. In the meantime, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll try to get to those. All right, we're going to get started again here. This is the third and final part of our presentation today. The last part is going to be trying to tie it together with spending plans. And I'm going to let Audrey go into some basics about spending plans and some tools. And again, the documents that we provided will have additional resources and tools that you can use. Cooperative Extension has come up with several tools. One called how to make your money go further, and another one called Getting Out of Debt, that are interactive and that you can use to try to get yourself on track. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Audrey, and she'll talk to you about some spending plans. You're muted.
Okay.
There we go.
Well, we're in for the home stretch. Hopefully you've been able to get something out of the presentation so far. And we're going to close out with the spending plan, which is kind of core to all that we've talked about. And so this is the third and final part of this presentation. And we're going to talk about how we make our money work for us or not. Hopefully we make it work for us. Move it forward, setting a spending plan. So what is a spending plan? I'm just going to, I don't know if that's in your way or not. Okay. It's an organized way of you saying what you're expecting to happen going forward or the upcoming year. It's money you have coming in, whether it be through wages, salary, gifts, or other income. Some people during the pandemic who lost their jobs, for example, may have been getting unemployment, as well as the additional money to help with getting through the pandemic. But that maybe, is probably going to be going away, I believe, in September soon. So there may be some adjustments to that cash inflow for some people. Maybe your job cut back, or now it's ramping back up and they're calling you back to work. But whatever your cash flow is, that's the money that you have coming in and the source, whether it be gifts. I have a sister who's disabled, and her son helps her monthly with her financial situation. So she can rely on that as part of her cash inflow. Some people have side jobs. So there's all kinds of ways of money coming in. And then how do we use that money? Money is a tool. It does what we tell it to do. Some people are like, how did I get in this situation? You put yourself in that situation. Your money did what you told it to do. And so that's your cash outflow. It's the things you spend your money on: your rent, your utilities, groceries, taxes, debt payments, shopping, whatever, fun nights out or vacations. That's your outflow of money. It's what you're spending. These little doohickeys keep being in the way. And so what does your spending plan look like if you were to do a spending plan? And hopefully today will, if you don't have one, inspire you to begin to think about one and actually put one into place. Your spending plan reflects on your lifestyle. Your spending, how you spend your money, really tells a lot about you, what you value, what's important to you. So that's why you see the little heart there. It's what you love, how you see and value money and the things you want money to do for you, whatever amount that is. And then you have a plan for spending it. Now, some of us have an organized plan. That means we decided in advance how we were going to use that money and make it work for us. And some of us have a spending plan that just happens. We get a bill, we pay it. We have no rhyme or reason or organization about managing that, is there an opportunity to cut my costs here? For example, insurance, that I shop around and make sure I'm getting the best interest rate for the coverage I need, so that that money that I don't spend unnecessarily on that particular item, I can use somewhere else. I'm making my money work for me. So that's the difference between being conscious about how you're spending your money and just spending your money. It causes you to think about how my money can be best utilized for what I wanted to do. One of the things that I believe gets people in trouble is looking to what their neighbor, friend, somebody they admire are doing and trying to replicate or lean into their lifestyle, as opposed to looking at what I like, what are my priorities based on my resources, how do I want to use my money? And it's about what I value, not what somebody else is doing. And so let's start with values and what goes into that. What do I care about? What's important to me? And so you want to maybe sit down and think that through in a quiet moment. What is most important to me? What do I want my lifestyle to look like with the resources I have? You may not be living the glamorous life or the life of luxury that you hope to have one day, but you do have resources. So you want to make the best of that. So you want to sit down and say, okay, based on the amount of income I have, what's important to me? You want to set goals. What is it this year that I want to accomplish? And 5 years from now, what is it that I want to be able to do with my money? You want to be organized. One of the things that my daughter is absolutely wonderful. One of the things she struggled with is staying organized. And so, because she always believes she's going to be able to get to it. And I said, you know what? If you would just put everything, important documents in one place, you're halfway there with organization, as opposed to having stuff everywhere and not knowing where it is when you need to put your hands on it or answer a question or make a decision. So hopefully you're already organized, you keep some system of your documents, your bills, etc., and you're able to access it when you need it and review it. But at a minimum, try to keep everything in one place that's important so that you can easily refer to it. You're going to need to make decisions about that. We talked early on in the, what do I do if I can't pay my bills, about prioritization. Well, with money, you have to establish some priorities. What's important? You're going to have to make some decisions about where you spend your money or not. You're going to have to implement it. It's no good, does you no good to, well, I thought about it. Well, but what did you do? Was there any action behind those thoughts? Because otherwise you just wasted your time. It really didn't help you if you didn't put it into action. And so you're also going to want to exercise some control, meaning you're going to manage. Control means, to me, manage. You're going to manage those resources so that it does do what you want it to do to the greatest extent possible. And then you're going to evaluate. You're going to say, okay, this was my plan. This is what I said I wanted my money to do and how I wanted to work. How did it go? Did the steps I take work? Maybe I need to, instead of reviewing my finances, what's coming in, what's going out once a month, maybe I need to do it twice a month based on when my money is coming in, because sometimes my money may not be in, or I may not have it in hand when something is due. So I may need to make some adjustments so that I know I have the money when the bill is due. Because what do we talk about under credit? Paying your bills on time will serve you well every time when it comes to credit. Monitor, review, and revise, meaning, sometimes it's trial and error, and it may not go perfectly the first few times out. So you may need to adjust, or life happens, like the pandemic. None of us put on our calendar, I want to be in a pandemic for 2020. I don't think anybody had that down. So life happens. And so we have to be flexible. We're smart. We know how to go back and make adjustments, review, reprioritize, and keep moving forward. So how do you do or build a spending plan? You identify your goals. And so when you say identify your goals, you're like, well, what goals are you talking about, Audrey? Again, what is it? Looking at the money you have, what are the things that you absolutely have to do and pay for the year? And then what, is there any money left over? And how do you want to use that money to do things that are important to you? And so when we talk about a goal is specific, it's time specific. For example, my daughter had a goal of buying a car. And so she wanted to be able to put a substantial down payment on the car so that her payments wouldn't be, that large. They would be manageable for her, in case something changed with her job. And so that was a goal for her by X date, because we wanted to be specific. So say by January 2021, I want to have saved a specific amount of money, say $3,000, to put towards the purchase of a car. And so when we set goals, is what our priorities are, and being specific, to say that, I want a car. Okay, well, that's nice, but how are you going to get there? You have to have a plan, and you have to be specific. How much do you want to spend? How much are you going to be able to put down? You get into the specifics. When do you want to have that by? And so then you can begin to figure out how much you need to save each month and what your source is going to be. You want to estimate your monthly income and expenses. So we talked about money coming in, whatever your resources coming in, you want to estimate what that's going to be and compare that and line that up with what your expenses are going to be. What are the things you're going to have to pay? And what is in priority one? I got to pay this no matter what. I want a roof over my head. I want food to eat. So that's probably in priority one. And then the nice haves, I want a new dress for the wedding, or shoes, or vacation, whatever. So you have different categories and priorities. And so you look at your money and figure out, based on what I have coming in, where I'm going to spend my money. What is the job? What are you telling your money you want it to do for you? And then track that. If you haven't done this exercise already, track it for a few months so that you get a good feel, meaning you're paying attention to what you're spending, what's coming in, when it's due, and what's going out, so that you get a good sense of your cash flow, your money coming in and going out. And you can make some better decisions about where you might want to make adjustments to make your money do what you want it to do, and to help you with the values and priorities that you set for yourself. And there's different ways to track expenses. You can use, some people use receipts. They just keep all their receipts, and then they're tallying them as they go and where they're going. Now, most people, if you have a bank account, most banks now have programs and services that you can track your expenses and put them in different categories to help you to manage your money better. You can do a pocket tracker where you're constantly noting when you purchase something, you have money going out, or you can use a wallet. You can use a checking account for those who still like checking accounts to keep up with their money. And hopefully you're balancing so you're not just writing checks and not keeping up with what's remaining. But that's another tool, a calendar. I still use my calendar because I often stay busy, and sometimes I look at oh my God, it's X date. But if I'm looking at my calendar, I'll have, what bills are due by what date, just to remind myself and make sure that things got paid. Some things, my daughter has, a lot of her bills automated so that they automatically take it out of her account. I have a mix of that. There are some things I don't mind being taken out, and other things I want control of. But whatever works for you is the bottom line. You may have a financial notebook where you keep all your financial information, and you're reviewing it and tracking how you manage your money and what's important, when things are due. And make sure that you are putting in your plan things that you're going to spend money on, like People usually during the holidays, you're going to spend more. So budget that, or add that in your spending plan. Some people are computer savvy, and so there are spreadsheets, people into spreadsheets, whatever works for you. And then there are mobile apps, which, a lot of people like, and is convenient. The thing is, find the tool that's going to work for you that you're going to use consistently. It makes no sense to get a fancy computer program or buy a new book to put it in and you never put anything in it, or you pull it, you download an app that you entered it the first week and then it was over. So know yourself and what you're going to gravitate. I'm still a very manual person, and so I've tried different things, but what I find I do most consistently is to write it down. So I have a written list of my bills and trackers. I will consistently do that. Other things I don't gravitate to. My daughter's the opposite. She likes mobile apps, so she will consistently, use that. So find what works for you and consistently use it. This is an example of a spending plan, and unfortunately it's a little cut off here, but I think you can get the idea. It says electricity, housing, rental, mortgage, groceries, meals eaten out. But this is a list of everything this person thought they were going to be spending money on. And so that's one of the keys to doing a spending plan, is make sure everything that you're going to spend money on, that you include it. Because if you don't, it's going to throw your spending plan off. You're going to be basing it on, I have X amount to cover these expenditures, when you've spent, $50 of that plan shopping that wasn't in your plan. So now you're going to be short 50 based on what you said you want to do. So it's important to account for it. If you're going to spend money on it, it should be in your spending plan. And you are the judge of what's important. A lot of people say, well, you don't need cable, or you don't need to spend this on your hair, blah, blah, blah. We subscribe to, you are the keeper of what's important and what you value. And based on that, make sure that you have a spending plan that accommodates that, so that you're still able to manage your bills and the priority items. So if you like, $10 coffee, fine. I may not care for $10 coffee, but I may like $20 meals, every now and then. So we have different lifestyles, likes and dislikes. So that's your spending plan, reflects you and what's important. You can look at past records, like what did I spend my money on, in the past? So you can go back and maybe look at your bank statement or credit cards and see how you spent your money, to get some sense of where your money is going, and making some decisions about what you want to change and how you want to make it work for you moving forward. You can track it for 2 or 3 months. Some people say, okay, you know what? I'm going to be very conscious and watch and record and note, either in an app or manually or in a tracker, what I'm spending for the next 2 or 3 months. And then I'm going to make some decisions about what I want to change going forward, that better meets my priorities and values. We're not perfect. We're going to have some slip ups and setbacks, but get back on track. Don't let, going off course one time, or something came up that you felt like you just needed to do, wreck your spending plan. Make an adjustment. You know what? I spent an extra $50 this month on this item. So let me see where I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to maybe cut back on what I'm spending for going out or groceries, to make up for that additional money that I spent elsewhere, because I really wanted to make that trip with my mom. I don't know. I'm just using that for an example. Avoid peer pressure. And that's what I was talking about earlier in lifestyle creep, where you're looking at what other people are doing, because they have their own values and resources, and they're doing what works for them. You need to look at what's important to you within your means and your resources, and what you want your lifestyle to be based on that. And so now we want to talk about, if you look at your income and your expenses, and they're out of line, meaning that, at the end of the month, you're not able to pay things, you're not covering the priorities, then you need to look at, your income stream. Is there things you can adjust to bring more money in, or can you reduce your expenses? Remember, in the previous session, we talked about how we can make some adjustments so that the cash flow that you have, the money coming in, will match up or work with what you have going out in your expenses. But here are some things that you can do. You can increase your income. You can sell things of value that may bring you some additional income. Here is this example of a few garage sales. Do a part-time second job, or maybe you have a talent. One of the things I think the pandemic reminded people of, all of us, is who we are and our abilities. We get sometimes caught up in the day-to-day routine, and we forget that we have other talent skills that may be a source of additional income, if not enjoyment, and we can explore those. So in addition to maybe doing things that you enjoy, painting, or you have a skill for organizing or shopping, people pay for that nowadays. So look at being creative, or maybe how you can do what's called a gig job, like on Etsy, where you have some craft skill, or DoorDash, where people are driving. There are different opportunities, and this may not be for you, but look into your talents and your skills and your abilities, and how can I use that to bring me some additional income? And then, of course, long-term is maybe you want to change your employment. Maybe if you just got another certificate or took another class, you would qualify for a higher position or a better paying position. So don't rule that out either. It's always good to grow and feel like you are maximizing your opportunities and your abilities. You can decrease, the other side of that is you can decrease your expenses or perk. You can postpone, maybe you wanted to do spend a certain thing on a certain item, but you've decided based on your priorities, you're going to do that next year. My daughter and I, we had always talked about, going to another country, but we decided with the pandemic, we weren't going to be doing that for a while. And so we postponed that and made some other decisions about where we might travel as a family. You may eliminate some things. You know what? I don't really need to be spending money on this, and it really don't bring me that much joy. I was just doing it because my friends were doing it, but that don't really bring me much joy. I'd rather be spending my money on X. So you may eliminate something and to decide to do something else with your money. You can cut it back. I was eating out, 3 times or 4 or 5 times a month, when, you know what, I'm good doing it 2 times a month or 3 times a month. I don't need to go out 2 or 3 times a week. That's eating up a lot of my money. I could do some other things that are important to me. And then looking at what you're going to keep. So these are some options to increasing your income and decreasing your expenses so that you're better able to manage your money. And make sure, or you can do a combination of both. And make sure in your plan that there is money for emergencies, because stuff happens. Like I can't tell you how many times people say, oh, I got to get tires and I don't have money. Well, nobody told you your tires on your car were going to last forever. That should have been in your budget. You should have a maintenance item in your budget for your car so that when things come up, you may not have it all, but it doesn't hit you as hard and, set you back. That's just an example. There may be other things that you want to make sure you have an emergency fund for, as well as you're saving for your future. And you can start small. And the thing about saving, sometimes when you don't have a whole lot and you're saving a little bit, it don't seem worthwhile, but it accumulates. And as it gets bigger, you get more excited and you begin to appreciate the value of saving. So it's always better to start somewhere and it will grow and you will thank yourself later. And so you want to make saving a habit. And by doing that, you're saying I'm making my future a priority. I'm, making sure that I have the lifestyle I want, not just now, but into the future. And I'm not going to be worried about, am I going to have enough to manage the life that I want and my priorities. Building a better spending plan requires a choice. And one of the things that's key to this about a spending plan is really you're making choices about what you want your money to do. You're making decisions about what you want your money to do. So at the end of the month, if you're ended up with money left over, that means that you managed well and you made some conscious decisions. And if you end up at the end of the month and you're still not meeting your debts and you're not able to pay your expenses, maybe you need some counseling or bring in some additional income and resources, but you definitely need to make some adjustments somewhere. And sometimes we need help in doing that. And so, we've mentioned some resources that can do that, and we'll do that at the end again as well. But remember, you want to do it consistently. That's why this says stay focused. It does no good to be, I'm saving, I'm watching, I'm managing my money, I'm making my money work for me this month, then the rest of the year is just willy-nilly, whatever, because your finances are going to look like that at the end of the year, and on your credit report, everywhere else, it's going to look probably not in the best light that you would want it and serve you well. So change is hard, but if you're doing it for your benefit, it will pay off. It takes practice, being consistent. It gives some organization so you know what to expect. It says you plan your work and work your plan. When you do that, you have some reasonable expectation that you're going to get the results that you want. You're going to meet your goals, and you're going to meet the specific things by the time frame that you said you wanted to do those things. And it's personal. Don't build your spending plan and your lifestyle around other people. Sit down or go to the beach or wherever you do your best thinking, and figure out what's important to you. It's a personal decision. And so you want to build your spending plan and your goals and your decisions around what's right for you and what's you value, what are your priorities. And so in wrapping up, I just want to do this brief summary to know that life happens. Sometimes we get behind on bills, or there are things that we didn't plan on, not anything we did wrong. It's just that the car broke down, or the company is doing a reduction in force. They're laying people off. And so, life happens. And so all of us at some point are going to face challenges in life. But the good news is there are people in your life and in your community that is there to help you come up with solutions and to figure out a course of action so that you can move forward. Don't ever feel shy or ashamed or too prideful to go in and ask to work with a counselor. Be communicative. And by that, a lot of times people will give part of the information. So somebody is trying to help you work through something, and you've only told them half of the story, where you're only going to get a half solution if you really don't come forward with all of the situation so that they can help you identify the resource and help you make the best decision. Watch your credit, literally watch your credit. Watch what you're spending your money on, accounts that you're opening and paying off, that you're making sure that you know what's on your report. Build a plan, but build your personal plan based on your priorities, your values, and what's going to work for you. And then get to work on the plan. It's no good to stop at, oh, I built a plan. Oh, I you know what, I'm going to get serious about my money. And then you do nothing. It's better to do a little at a time and be consistent than to do nothing. You start somewhere with the first step and, the step after that. So I want to thank you for being a participant today and encourage you to take advantage of the resources. And thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'm going to turn it back over to Joanne. Thanks again.
Audrey, Joanne, this was great information. Thank you for sharing this with us today. From here, we're going to move over to the question and answer panel. Amani, Joanne, have we had any questions come in?
Oh, we just got one. Okay, so this one says, if someone is behind on their utility bills, is there a good place they can go locally to help with this? So under normal circumstances, ACTS is one of the places to go to request for utility assistance. You can always go to the utility company first and ask them. If you've ever gotten, I have Dominion here, when I get my bill, it asks if I want to put an extra $1 or $2 down as a donation to utility assistance for somebody else. So the utility companies do have their own program, so go to them first. ACTS does have utility assistance. Sometimes DSS will have utility assistance. Right now, because we're in the pandemic, there is pandemic money that the Office of Community Housing and Development has for utility and mortgage assistance. They don't normally have utility assistance, but because of the pandemic, they were given grant funds to provide utility assistance. Emergency savings, how much should there be? Okay, so the question is, how much should you have in your emergency savings? The guidelines is usually 3 to 6 months of your expenses. So that means that if something were to happen to you, you could potentially be out of work for 3 months or 6 months before you found either new work, or if you were in an accident, you were recovering, whatnot. So you aim to have 3 to 6 months of your expenses. It sounds like a lot, and it's been in this day and age, the number of people who can't come up with $400 to cover expenses is significant. And so we've been really focusing on trying to encourage people to save. And people always ask me, if I have debt, why should I be putting money into savings? And we always say, if we had the savings in the first place, we likely wouldn't have had so much trouble with the debt that we have right now. Now, some debt is a little more than we could save for, but any savings is better than no savings. And if you have debt and you're still putting money into savings, when that debt goes away, not only do you have the savings, you have the habit of the savings as well. So we do say that even if you have debt, you want to put some money into savings. The 3 to 6 months of expenses is overwhelming for a lot of people. And so people are like, I'll never get there, I won't start. My advice is always this: start small. Take $5, put it in a box, put it in a savings account. Take, every week $5. Most HR places will let you do 4 different deposits. So you can have one going into checking and one going into savings. Then you can choose another savings somewhere else. My savings account is not at the same bank as my checking account is, and that's on purpose. That way I can't keep transferring the money back and forth. Goes into the savings account, and I have to drive over there to get the money if I want, which I'm not going to do right now. So it helps me to make sure that my savings stays in my savings account. But start small. Just do what you can, put a little money aside, and then teach yourself to do without that money. We spend what comes into our bank account. So you'll adjust to what shows up in your bank account if you're sending other money to a savings account somewhere else. All right, advice. Do we have any advice for someone that may have experienced credit fraud? So we do a presentation that talks about identity theft. One of the first things is that you'll want to put a freeze on your credit, and then you'll have to do a lot of contacting your creditors and letting them know that there's been fraud, file reports with the credit reporting agency. And if it's significant enough, then you'll want to file an identity theft report with the FTC. And then once it's there, you just have to keep track of everything. You're going to close down what you can, write letters, try to get the information off of your credit. I did have my bank account hacked very recently. One of the reasons I bank where I bank is because I know that they will take it off of my account immediately, and then they'll fight for me when that happens onto my bank account. But if you do have credit fraud and it's difficult, you can work with a counselor and we can try to help you write the letters and send out the information. As are templates and letter examples that can be used for goodwill deletion for your credit. So the FTC has some good documents and publications. So the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, put that in the chat. The FTC, if you go to their publications, there's a publication called Fixing Your Credit. First, let me just say this. The only person that can fix your credit is you. So if there's anything on your credit that needs to be improved, eliminated, deleted, whatever it is, you're the only person that can do it. Even a credit, if it's a credit repair company, they send that information to you and make you send it out. But the FTC has brochures, and in those brochures are template letters that I tell people just copy and paste it, put your information in there, send it to the websites that they tell you to send it to, or the credit reporting agencies, and just follow up with that. The CFPB, consumerfinance.gov, also has some template letters as well. All right, I don't see any other questions either. Those are very good questions. So like I said, credit is the one thing we get a lot of questions on, that because that is, as I mentioned before, in this country, just about everything that we do financially is dependent on our credit score. So that becomes a very significant part of how we handle anything else. But if you have some questions when you sit with us as financial counselors, we do pull a free credit report with a score. We can go over that report with you in detail. And then we can talk about solutions for how to move forward with your credit. Muted. All right, Heather, you're muted.
I'm muted. Sorry about that.
Go.
Thanks, Joanne. Thanks, Audrey. Thanks, Imani. All right, we want to thank everyone for joining us today. This has been a very informative session. We hope that you've gained the knowledge around recovering financially and establishing building blocks for future financial success. We do have some additional resources for you today. I know Joanne has posted a number of links. I know Carmen had shared a link as well that you should be able to access. In addition, I know Joanne and Audrey will be sending an email out to all of the registered participants. We want to give a huge thank you to Joanne and Audrey for really sharing their expertise today. I really appreciate you both being here. And another thank you to Lingua Franca Leadership Prince William Class of 2021, our Executive Director, Andrea Money, and our Chair, Tina Laguna.